I have two questions for you. One, does Justice Clarence Thomas hallucinate? And two, whose rights is Justice Thomas defending against the appellant in Hunter v. United States? I want to talk about the hallucination that is the cornerstone underlying everything Clarence Thomas says and does. And this comes out in this recent case, Hunter v. United States, where Thomas basically says that because there were no appeals courts at the time of the founding, then the people who signed the Constitution didn't contractually guarantee the right of individuals to criminal appeals. But what Thomas implies when he says that is that there's some other hallucination, essentially, is what it is, that has a right against criminal appeals. In other words, a local judge has a right to not have his decisions overturned by an appeals court judge. The executive branch has a right to not have things that a local executive employee wants reviewed by an appeals court. And certainly, nobody at the time of the Constitution secured an executive branch Bill of Rights, secured the right of local judges to not have their decisions reviewed by appeals judges. So why does Thomas just begin with this assumption that there's some entity out there that has essentially this natural God-given right? What this stand-in is, this party, this interest that Thomas is inserting. And in other words, that's the party whose interest is being protected against this guy Hunter getting his plea agreement revealed by an appeals court. There's an interest that Thomas is imagining, a party with rights, despite this party not being named in the Constitution or advocated on behalf of when the Constitution was signed. And that party is a mirage of collective decision-making, essentially a communist sort of like hippie collective mind hallucination that Thomas instinctively inserts and then defends this imaginary entity in his mind, despite nobody doing so at the time the Constitution was written. The reality is that Thomas is inserting his own corrupt preferences and agenda and imagining, hallucinating that this is coming from some kind of abstract social collective mind. But there's not actually any mechanism. Voters are never voting on these specific things. It's not coming from laws written by the legislature, then pushed in there by courts. It's just completely arbitrary insider agendas, which Thomas is then in his mind assigning to some collective mind that he hallucinates. He's using his own hands and preferences to decide the outcome of cases, and not only lying to you that it's coming from some imagined the people who are actually not touching it at all, but he actually himself believes that his own preferences are somehow the populist will. He's like some kind of super legislature enforcing this populist will, which is a complete hallucination because the social collective will does not exist.